Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a monumental stack of sources, articles, research, investigative notes, and distill them into the most essential knowledge you need to be perfectly informed.
And today, we are diving into a true masterclass in puzzle making. It's a challenge so complex, so high stakes, that it really redefined what it means to be an eccentric millionaire.
That's putting it lightly. We are talking about the absolutely astonishing testament left by a man named Marcus Towne, though everyone in Rocky Beach, California just knew him as Dingo.
Right, and our sources are fantastic. We have Dingo's actual six-part riddle, the entire investigative file detailing how the code was cracked, and maybe most importantly, the psychological deep dive that uncovered the real motivations behind this whole bizarre treasure hunt.
Okay, so let's set this up. Because the personality of Dingo Town is, it's the engine for everything that follows.
Absolutely. Dingo was a genuine recluse. He lived in Rocky Beach for 20 years, a total hermit, dressed shabbily, lived in this old rundown house just filled with junk.
And yet, there was this local legend that just wouldn't die. The story was that he was secretly a millionaire.
And for once, the local legend was 100% true. When he passed away, his estate revealed this huge fortune, a cool $1 million.
$1 million. But not in a bank account.
No, and that's the key. It wasn't in stocks or bonds. It was entirely in easily concealable gemstones. Opals, sapphires, rubies, emeralds. The fact that his wealth was, mobile, untraceable, it's the perfect setup for what happens next.
It is. Which brings us to the core document, the thing that kicked this whole thing off. His shocking handwritten will.
And this wasn't some stuffy legal document. It was filed by his friend John Dillon, but it was pure Dingo. It was basically a masterwork of contempt.
He left a ridiculously insulting sum, $1 single to each of his next of kin. His daughter-in-law, his grandson, his niece, and his nephew. $1 each.
And the rest of it. The entire $1 million fortune. He left it, and this is a direct quote, "without reservations to anyone who can find my treasure."
And he even explained why. He put it right there in the will.
Oh, he did. He stated very clearly his pure disdain for what he called shiftless, greedy, stupid, and otherwise useless people who like my money more than they like me.
That sets the tone perfectly, doesn't it? It tells you right away this isn't some friendly parlor game.
Dingo is using this puzzle as an intellectual filter.
Exactly. It's designed to weed out the lazy, the greedy, and, the intellectually incapable. He's saying, if you want this money, you have to earn it with your brain.
Of course, the legal stakes shut up immediately.
Okay.
Dingo had appointed 3 executors, his friend John Dillon, a law firm, Sinkin Waters, and kind of mysteriously, Alfred Hitchcock.
Who, it should be noted, immediately and very publicly denied any real connection with Dingo, calling him an old scoundrel. But the real conflict came from the family's lawyer, a man named Roger Callow.
Right. Callow comes out and declares the will is basically proof of mental illness. He claims a legitimate prior will exists, one that would favor the direct family, Nellie Towne, and her young son, Billy.
And that immediately tells you that even if someone solves the puzzle, they're walking into a huge legal battle. It puts all the official players, the lawyers, the family squarely in the mix as potential adversaries.
And that's where the investigators come in. Hitchcock, while he denied being friends with Dingo, did bring them into it. He felt he needed discreet professional help to sort of disentangle himself from the whole mess.
He saw the deadly implications, as he put it.
So let's look at the challenge itself. Dingo left a 6-line riddle, which was then published in the local papers, and that's what launched the whole public hunt. We'll save the 2 little sentences at the end for later because they turned out to be the ultimate trick.
The masterstroke, really.
Okay, so here are the 6 lines that started it all. Where the wild dog lives, the bottle and stopper shows the way to the billabong.
Above the apples and pears, all alone, the lady from Bristol rides from a friend.
At the 10th ball of twine, you and me see our handsome mug ahead.
One man's victim is another's darlin', follow the nose to the place.
Where men buy their trouble and strife, get out if you can.
In the posh queen's old Ned, be bright and natural and the prize is yours.
That is just fantastically cryptic. And the moment it went public, it was just disaster.
Oh, instantaneous and catastrophic. The sources all describe it as a mob scene. Hundreds of fortune hunters just descended on Dingo's property in Rocky Beach. Absolute pandemonium.
The descriptions are wild. People were literally swarming the place, trampling bushes, digging holes, pulling at the piles of bottles and trash.
Which meant the urgency for a structured intellectual investigation went from, 0 to 100. The crowd was actively destroying any potential physical evidence.
So for minute one, they knew this had to be solved with brains, not brute force. You couldn't just dig for it.
Exactly. Which sets the stage perfectly for our first section, finding the crucial linguistic key.
Right. Because of that mob, any literal interpretation of the first clue was just. It was immediately off the table.
It was. The first line is, where the wild dog lives, the bottle and stopper shows the way to the billabong. Now, Dingo was famous for collecting junk, especially bottles.
His house was littered with them.
Hundreds, maybe thousands of them. So looking for one specific bottle that was pointing somewhere in the middle of that wreckage with a mob tearing the place apart, it was totally futile.
But the first little breakthrough came from just focusing on Dingo's nickname.
Right. Dingo is Australian for a wild dog. And billabong is also an Australian term for a stream or a water hole.
So where the wild dog lives, that's Dingo's house. And they were looking for a clue that pointed to a nearby water source.
Probably the reservoir right next to his property, so that gave them a geographical area to focus on. But the real breakthrough, the linguistic key that unlocked the entire rest of the puzzle, came from an almost offhand comment.
This was from the lawyer, Roger Callow, right?
It was. When talking to him, he mentioned that Dingo was born in Australia, that his father had been a convict, and that Dingo hated almost everything except Australia and maybe Cockneys like his father.
Okay, but wait a second. How do you get from his dad was a Cockney to the whole riddle is a rhyming code? That feels like a massive leap.
It's a huge leap, but it's based on knowing the history of that specific subculture. The investigators started thinking about the unique way Cockneys and Australians talk, and suddenly the idea just clicked. Cockney rhyming slang.
And it fit Dingo's personality perfectly.
To a T, his disdain for the ignorant, his love of fooling people, it perfectly matched the entire purpose of the slang.
So for anyone listening, let's define this. What exactly is Cockney rhyming slang?
So it's a code, basically. A word or a phrase is replaced by a different phrase that rhymes with it. But here's the trick. Often the actual rhyming word is then dropped, just to make it even more confusing.
So it's a two-step process.
Right. And it originated with Cockneys in London's East End, and a lot of it was exported to Australia, specifically by convicts who used it as a secret language to, fool the authorities.
Which is so Dingo. With his convict father and his hatred of stupid people, he was basically asking the treasure hunter to join his secret intellectual club. You had to know the code.
You did. And once they have that key, a huge part of the riddle just opened right up. We can build a little decoded dictionary right from the clues.
Okay, so the second clue has apples and pears.
That's classic Cockney for stairs.
You and me.
A cup of tea.
Trouble and strife.
That's a wife. A bit cynical, but there it is.
And old Ned.
Old Ned, or sometimes Uncle Ned. It means bed. This showed them they had a consistent, reliable system.
So let's go back to the first clue then. Bottle and stopper. What does that rhyme with?
It rhymes with copper, a policeman. And the full phrase, bottle and stopper, is one that the investigators figured every convict would know.
So the clue wasn't about a physical glass bottle at all.
Not at all. It was a brilliant misdirection. It wasn't about finding an object in the chaos. It was about finding a person, a policeman who knew Dingo and knew about his special billabong.
That's genius. It completely bypasses the physical mob scene.
So they started asking around. They knew Dingo hated the police, but they figured there might be an exception.
And there was. Dingo's grandson, Billy, remembered something. Despite his grandfather's attitude, he used to go fishing in the county park next door with a particular policeman.
Deputy Lopez. A county policeman. He was the human key.
And Lopez confirmed it. He told them Dingo's favorite fishing spot was the old reservoir that was fed by Yina's Creek. That was the billabong.
So the first major obstacle was cleared, not by digging, but by applying the right linguistic and really psychological filter.
Okay, so they found the billabong, this old reservoir with a beat-up houseboat moored there. This takes us into the step-by-step path of the riddle and, maybe more importantly, the adversaries who immediately start making this a genuinely dangerous race.
Right. Riddle 2 sent them straight to that houseboat. Above the apples and pears, all alone, the lady from Bristol rides from a friend.
Apples and pears, we know that's stairs. So they found this rickety set of wooden stairs on the houseboat that led up to the roof deck.
And this is where the action starts, immediately. The moment they get up there, they face two different physical dangers, one right after the other.
So first, the clue, lady from Bristol. They're looking for an object that rhymes with that, that's all alone, and points towards a ride from a friend. But they're stumped. They just find some old boxes and bait cans.
And that's when their rival, Skinny Norris, shows up. He'd obviously been spying on them, and he'd figured out the Cockney slang, too.
And he doesn't just try to beat them to the clue. He goes for something much worse.
Oh, yeah. He sneers at them, confirming they're in the right place, but then he launches his attack. He had cut the ropes tethering the houseboat to the shore.
So suddenly it's not a riddle anymore. It's a survival situation.
It is. The sources describe this terrifying moment where the boat starts drifting fast right towards the dam, where the water is just pouring over the edge into this deep, rocky chasm.
This is where the stakes go from a fun puzzle to, life and death.
It took some incredibly quick thinking and real athleticism from one of the investigators, who had to shift his weight and lasso a stump on the bank to stop them from going over.
Wow. And only after they're safe can they get back to the actual riddle.
Right. The stairs led up the mountain nearby to a little meadow where there was a bus stop. And there, on a pedestal, was a small bronze statue of a cowboy aiming a pistol.
A pistol. That's the rhyme. Lady from Bristol rhymes with pistol.
And it was all alone on its pedestal. It should have been pointing towards the ride from a friend, which was the bus stop, but it wasn't.
It had been moved.
Exactly. The statue could rotate, and they saw fresh marks where someone had recently twisted it. It was Skinny Norris. He'd found it first and just rotated it to hide the target and block their next step.
So Skinny's a constant problem, but he's just one of them.
Not even the worst. You also have the Percival, Cecil, and Winifred, Dingo's niece and nephew from England, and they were, if anything, more dangerous because they were so aggressive.
Their strategy was pretty crude, right? They just tried to bribe the investigators.
Right out of the gate. Offered them 10% of the fortune to switch sides, assuming they'd just fold for the money. When that didn't work, they went straight to kidnapping.
Winifred pretended to be an ally, offering them a ride, and then Cecil was just waiting for them with this heavy walking stick.
Yeah, that black walking stick became this constant symbol of their physical threat. Their plan was to just lock the investigators in a remote cabin for a month while they solved the rest of the riddle.
And they only got away because of a pre-planned escape maneuver.
Ramble and scramble, yeah. Which let them break free from the car and make a run for it.
And then there's a third group of adversaries.
The mysterious thugs. A giant man named Savo and his smaller armed partner, Turk. And they weren't treasure hunters. They were identified as professional loan sharks, debt collectors, looking for money owed by some unknown party.
Their role is so interesting because it keeps changing. First, they're just spying. Then they actually help the investigators by running the Percivals off the road. Then later, they get hired to kidnap the investigators to clear the path.
The whole stage was just incredibly crowded and dangerous.
So back to the riddle. The pistol is now pointing at the bus stop, the ride from a friend. They figured Dingo must have taken a specific bus route to visit his friend, John Dillon, the executor.
Which takes us to riddles 3 and 4, and these required a huge psychological leap about Dingo himself. Riddle 3. At the 10th ball of twine, you and me see our handsome mug ahead.
We know you and me is a cup of tea, but what's a ball of twine?
They applied the Cockney logic again. Ball of twine rhymes with sign. So they rode the bus route past Dillon's house, counting signs from the bus stop. But the 10th sign was a do not enter sign, and it was clearly wrong.
This is the moment of genius, right? They knew they were close, but the count was off. And the key was Dingo's personality.
His pathological cheapness. Dillon confirmed that Dingo, being a notorious penny pincher, always walked one stop downhill to catch the bus into town.
Why downhill?
To save 10 cents by leaving the higher fare zone.
Oh, that is brilliant. So that single detail changed the entire way they had to count.
Exactly. The count had to start one stop after Dillon's house on the return trip, heading back to town to mirror Dingo's miserly routine. And when they did that, the 10th sign they counted was the big one for the Fairview shopping mall.
The riddles weren't just linguistic, they were biographical. You had to know the man.
You did. And the mall led them to riddle 4. One man's victim is another's darlin', follow the nose to the place. They figured the cup of tea from the last clue, plus the mall, had to mean a tea shop.
But what about darlin'?
This is where it gets really deep. They realized Dingo used obscure, sometimes made-up Australian rhyming slang. After checking with Dillon, they confirmed that in some circles, darlin' was known as briny marlin, a big fish. A swordfish.
So they go to the Stratford tea shop in the mall, where Dingo used to sit at table 6. And above that table
is a mounted swordfish, a marlin. But what about see our handsome mug ahead?
Mug is slang for face. So see your face means look in a mirror.
And opposite table 6 was a huge wall mirror. And when you looked in it, you saw the reflection of the marlin above your head, and its literal sword, its nose, was pointing directly at a framed photograph on the opposite wall.
A photograph of the Rocky Beach Town Hall. The path was clear again. Okay, so we're moving into the final stages. They followed the marlin's nose to the town hall. This sets them up for Riddle 5, where men buy their trouble and strife. Get out if you can.
Right, and we already established that trouble and strife is Cockney slang for a wife.
So where men buy their wife is the Town Hall Marriage License Bureau. This one was a literal translation, no rhyme needed, just knowing the slang.
And the bureau itself held the next clue, hidden in that phrase. Get out if you can.
They get in there, and the room only has one door they can see. The windows are barred. But they notice the floor tiles are worn down at a path leading straight to a wall.
A wall that had clearly been plastered and painted over recently. There used to be a door there, but it had been walled up.
I mean, this is such a Dingo move. It's so tricky.
It's peak Dingo. Because it wasn't just a walled-up door. It was a bilingual, literal translation. The investigators realized the street that door would have exited onto was called Salsapides Street.
And in Spanish, Salsapuides means
Get out if you can!
no way.
Yeah.
He used a temporary architectural change and a bilingual pun to create the clue. That's a level of arrogance that is just wow.
It's incredible. So they step out onto Salsapides Street, and right across the road is a Chamber of Commerce sign advertising the city's newest and biggest tourist attraction.
The SS Queen of the South, a decommissioned ocean liner that's been turned into a floating hotel.
And that was the destination for the final riddle of the main set, Riddle 6. In the posh queen's old Ned, be bright and natural, and the prize is yours.
Okay, let's break that down. Posh Queen has to be the ship. Old Ned means bed. So they're looking for a specific bed on the SS Queen of the South.
And the instruction, be bright and natural, was the key to finding the exact hiding spot within the cabin they needed to find.
But how do they find the right cabin? There must be hundreds.
They needed a personal connection. They found it with the co-signer of the will, a woman named Sadie Jingle. Turns out she'd actually sailed with Dingo 30 years earlier and remembered his specific cabin number, D22.
And she said it was one of the worst cabins on the ship, which sounds about right for Dingo.
So that led them to the final action. Be natural meant lie down on the bed, a natural resting position. And be bright meant look for a light source.
So you lie down on the bed in cabin D22 and was directly in your line of sight.
The ceiling light fixture.
So they've solved it. But they're not the first ones there.
Not even close. As they get to cabin D22, they hear noises. The police chief is with them. They rush in, and they find Skinny Norris tied up, claiming he was knocked out hours ago.
Which is a total lie. They'd just seen him spying on the deck.
A complete lie. And then they hear glass break down the hall and see Cecil and Winifred Percival fleeing from cabin D22, and Cecil is clutching a small black case.
They chase him down. Cecil slips and falls in the B-deck lounge, and they get the case. This is it. The big moment.
The moment of truth. They open it up, and inside is not $1 million in gems. It's brightly colored glass, fakes.
Oh, the psychological blow of that must have been crushing.
And to make it worse, there was a letter from Dingo, a final mocking letter where he claimed he'd spent all his money and the whole hunt was just a prize for fools.
And he even included a string recording of his own mocking laugh.
It was the perfect false finish, designed to make everyone, the family, the public, the police believe the entire thing was just a giant, spiteful joke. The investigation should have ended right there.
But it didn't. One of the investigators, Pete, searches the hole in the ceiling where the case was hidden.
And he finds the second envelope. That envelope contains the real will, the one Callow, the lawyer, had claimed was missing from his office, the one naming Nellie and her grandson Billy as the heirs.
Callow is overjoyed. He says this validates everything. But Jupiter, the head investigator, is immediately suspicious. Why would Dingo, a guy who just recorded a mocking laugh for them, hide a legitimate will?
And that's the critical turning point. He realizes that if Dingo really had destroyed the original will, like his friend Sadie said he did, then the one they just found must be a fake, planted by someone trying to protect their own claim to the estate.
And the person who benefits the most from that fake will is
Roger Callow. We know he owed huge gambling debts to those thugs, Savo and Turk. Callow needed that money. His plan was to plant a fake will naming Nellie, and then marry her. which under California law would give him control over half her property.
So he was playing this long, complicated game. But then why hire the investigators in the first place?
Because that was just plan B. His real plan, his preferred plan, was to use them as his unpaid brain trust. He hired them as dupes, figuring they were smart enough to solve the riddle. Once they found the real gems, he could just take them out of the picture and steal the entire fortune himself to pay off Savo and Turk instantly.
So the whole treasure hunt was just Callow's way of getting free intellectual labor.
Exactly. He even ordered his thugs to kidnap the investigators near the end, just to clear the path for himself once he thought they were getting too close.
So the million-dollar question is still on the table. If the case was full of fakes and the will was a fake, where were the real gems? And this brings us to the hidden seventh riddle and the climax.
Right. Jupiter realized Dingo had left one final, ultimate trick, a challenge for the people who were smart enough to see past the false ending. After the sixth riddle, Dingo had written 2 lines that everyone else just dismissed as a final taunt.
But Jupiter connected the specific wording and realized it was the real last step. The lines were, "Who'd have thought the old man had so much money in him? Roll the dice and the swag is yours."
Let's just pause and appreciate the brilliance here. The first line isn't Dingo's. It's a near-exact quote from Shakespeare's Macbeth.
Who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him?
Exactly. And the second line, roll the dice. That's gambling terminology.
And Jupiter connects roll the dice back to the instruction in Riddle 6. Be bright and natural.
A natural in a dice game is a 7 or an 11 on the first throw. And the number 7 was the light bulb moment. Dingo was telling them there was a hidden 7th riddle and you only got to it after the false finish.
And the 7th riddle was solved by the Shakespeare quote. It had to be pointing to a Macbeth room somewhere on the ship.
Right. An old ocean liner like that would almost certainly have themed lounges. So the real treasure wasn't in some grimy cabin. It was in a public lounge, keyed to a literary quote.
But Jupiter didn't just solve it. He knew Callow was the real enemy, and he was probably still on the ship watching them.
So he set this brilliant trap.
He announced his solution out loud, that there was a 7th riddle, but then he pretended to be stumped by the location. He said he needed to go to a library to figure it out, just to bait Callow.
And the bait worked perfectly. Jupiter led the others away, then he slipped back into the shadows near the B deck. And a few moments later, a shadowy figure with a flashlight crept into the Macbeth room and started searching.
The figure went right for these bronze busts of Scottish warriors that decorated the room. He realized one of them, a warrior king, was hollow.
He tested the weight, knew it was the spot, reached inside, and pulled out a big leather bag. The moment he dropped the bust with a crash, they knew it was Keller. He had been lurking, listening, and he made his move the second he thought they were gone.
The trap worked, but Callow immediately turned the tables. He came out of the room with a pistol, confessed everything about his gambling debts, and made it clear he was taking the whole fortune.
Right. He was demanding Pete get the bag of gems, which Jupiter had managed to hide behind a grate. But in a moment of panic, Jupiter yelled out an instruction to Billy, Dingo's grandson, telling him to go get the chief.
And Callow just laughs, because he thinks Billy is either gone or captured by his thugs.
But Billy wasn't. He had been running for help for a while, having used this kids' communication network, the ghost-to-ghost hookup, to find out where they were.
And Billy had been busy. Earlier in the day, after Callow and his thugs had grabbed them, Billy had cleverly taken the distributor cap out of the thug's car, so they had no escape vehicle.
So when Billy comes running back towards the ship, Callow gets distracted for just a second, which is all they need to signal Billy to go get real help. And suddenly, it's a full-blown chase scene with the police arriving.
The final showdown happens down at the freight port. Callow tries to escape down this steep, narrow freight gangplank, and he grabs the most athletic investigator, Pete, to use as a human shield.
And this leads to this just spectacular physical climax. With the police shouting at him, Callow is distracted, and Pete sees his chance.
He just hooks Callow's ankle with his foot.
Callow loses his balance, stumbles back, and they both just plummet 30 feet into the water. Callow drops his gun, and more importantly, he drops the bag of gems.
But Pete, being the athlete of the group, actually manages to grab the bag in midair before he hits the water.
It's this incredible moment of athleticism over greed. He surfaces, holding the $1 million in gems high over his head. Callow hits the water, breaks his leg, and is immediately arrested.
And the real treasure is finally secured for Nellie and Billytown. So let's just wrap this up with the final resolution for everyone involved. Callow obviously didn't just get arrested for theft.
No, he was charged with a whole list of things. Kidnapping, assault, all of it stemming from his desperation to pay off those gambling debts.
And the Percivals, Cecil and Winifred.
They faced serious charges, too. Reckless endangerment, for one thing, for trying to drop a lifeboat on the investigators. They ended up facing potential deportation back to England.
And we can assume Skinny Norris was not, in fact, reformed by his brief time in a closet.
A very safe assumption, yes.
So the real million-dollar fortune was secured for the rightful heirs, Nellie and Billy Towne, which, in a way, proves Dingo's point. His challenge made sure the money went to people who proved their worth, even if it was indirectly.
But the real lesson that Dingo left behind wasn't just about solving a 7-part riddle. After it was all over, Jupiter, the lead investigator, confessed to Alfred Hitchcock that he had made this huge, frustrating mistake. He'd missed an enormous shortcut.
A shortcut that could have solved 5 riddles all at once, right after they got the town hall clue.
And this is the final provocative thought for you, the listener. It all comes down to one single, easily overlooked word in Riddle 6, posh.
Right. The line was, in the posh queen's old Ned.
Mm-hmm.
And they just took posh to mean, elegant or first class, which was enough to point to the ship.
But they stopped their analysis too soon. The captain of the SS Queen of the South gave them the final aha moment when he revealed the history of that word.
Posh isn't just a synonym for elegant.
It's an acronym. Port out, starboard home.
Wait, what does that mean?
It's an old term from the days of steamship voyages, especially between London and places like India or Australia. Because of how the sun tracks on that long journey, the best cabins, the ones that stayed cool and out of the intense sun, were on the port side when sailing east or out, and on the starboard side when sailing west or home.
P-O-S-H. So it was physically stamped on the tickets for the most expensive cabins.
And Dingo, who had traveled that exact London-Australia route, would have known that history intimately.
So the word posh wasn't just descriptive. It was the final, definitive clue. It pointed unequivocally to the one and only ship that fit the history and the criteria, the SS Queen of the South.
A true master of the puzzle would have seen that one word and solved half the riddle instantly. It proves that Dingo's ultimate test wasn't just about solving a sequence, but about having the deep, comprehensive, even historical knowledge to see the shortcut that everyone else misses.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? Sometimes the real deep dive isn't about tackling the complex problem step by step.
It's about knowing the specific linguistic historical key that's been sitting right in front of you the whole time. What hidden acronyms are controlling the flow of information in your world right now?
Something to think about until our next deep dive. That's all the time we have for this exploration into eccentric fortunes and coded language. We'll see you next time.